Thank you for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, Russian President Vladimir Putin is accusing President Biden of funding a proxy war. We have more on that and other developments in the escalating violence in Ukraine. Plus,
so the nation has a national biodetection system called BioWatch, and associated with that is an acquisition program called BD21. My understanding is they don't work, period.
See why this could make the U.S. unprepared to defend itself against a biological attack. Then later, the Abraham Accords peace treaty is gaining traction with other countries.
We are all very proud of the Abraham Accords that were signed by President Trump, Prime Minister Netanyahu, and leaders from the Gulf. Today, we see the fruits of those agreements.
We'll show you a group of diplomats who were invited to Israel in an effort to show the potential of working together. All these stories and more are coming up next from the CBN Newsroom.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
We begin with President Biden asking Congress for billions to help Ukraine fight off Russian aggression. Meanwhile, Vladimir Putin blames the White House for funding a proxy war, and he's renewing threats of using nuclear weapons. CBN's Brody Carter has a look at this political tit-for-tat in our top story.
Ukraine has become an epicenter of unbearable heartache and pain as Russians maintain their all-out assault on multiple fronts. Fires and rubbled buildings riddle the landscape of Kyiv after Russian bombs rocked Ukraine's capital once again. Sprawling violence left several people killed or wounded in Mariupol as the Russians push on in several cities.
The worst of crimes is war itself.
The fresh bombardment of Kyiv happened as the UN Secretary General was touring the country's devastation outside the capital. Here at home, the president promising more action.
We're going to seize their yachts, their luxury homes, and other ill-begotten gains.
President Biden hopes to sell the wealth of Russian oligarchs to help Ukraine in its war with Russia. He's also asking Congress for $33 billion for military, economic, and humanitarian aid.
The cost of this fight is not cheap. But caving to aggression is going to be more costly if we allow it to happen.
As America seeks to strain Russian power, fears are growing that Russia's war on Ukraine could spread beyond the border, either by crossing into NATO countries or through cyber warfare. They've already cut off gas and oil to Bulgaria and Poland. President Putin pointed to the size and power of his nuclear arsenal Wednesday. Putin's renewed threats come after accusing the U.S. of leading a proxy war against Russia, supplying weapons to Ukraine to weaken Russia's military.
We're not attacking Russia. We're helping Ukraine defend itself against Russian aggression.
U.S. intel has credible information reporting one of the darkest chapters of this war. Russian forces executing Ukrainian civilians who were trying to surrender near Donetsk, and the bodies of women and girls showed signs of torture and sexual violence. Other barbarities include the destruction of Mission Eurasia last month. The missionary headquarters near Kyiv was destroyed by Russian tanks while trying to help Ukrainian refugees flee the war. The nonprofit said after the Russians destroyed their building, Russian troops threw any remaining stockpiles of Bibles and Christian books from our warehouse on the ground and burned them. The war has now claimed the life of an American, 22-year-old Willie Joseph Cancel, who died fighting with Ukrainian forces. He leaves behind his wife and young son. All of this as the constant Russian attacks have driven more and more Ukrainians out of their own country. Brody Carter, CBN News.
Our senior international correspondent, George Thomas, joins us now from Ukraine. So, George, I know you've been spending time with a prominent pastor from Mariupol. What is he telling you about the situation in his city?
Pastor Gennady Mukhnenko is very famous in Mariupol. He is the father of 37 adopted children. He has 3 biological children. He runs one of Ukraine's largest homes for street kids. And this week, he was told by sources inside Mariupol that his center, the Pilgrim Center, has been taken over by Russian forces, that his home has been commandeered by Russian forces, as well as homes of other pastors. What he has been doing in the last 60-plus days is that he's sending people into Mariupol, individual people with their cars, to try and get people out. Keep in mind, Ephraim, they have to go through maybe 20, 25 Russian checkpoints, and there's no guarantee that they'll get there alive. And if they do get there alive, there's no guarantee that they'll come out alive with those who are trapped. So horrific situation going on today in Mariupol.
You're also reporting on Mission Eurasia's work in Ukraine and the countries of the former Soviet Union. How are they handling the devastation and the loss to operations in Irpin?
Yeah. CBN has had a long relationship with Mission Eurasia. It's horrible what they've experienced in the total destruction of their building in Irpin. But you know what? The good news is that they are continuing to do work. They're doing humanitarian work on the Polish border in Moldova, as well as in Ukraine. And get this, there is a huge demand for Bibles. And so Mission Eurasia has been printing tens of thousands of copies of the New Testament as well as the book of Psalms and distributing this along with their care package. So even though they've lost their building, their premises, their headquarters, they continue to do the great work that they are known for here in Ukraine and in the former Soviet Union.
George, NATO is saying this war could drag on for years. Are Ukrainians ready for that?
Look, I think they're just taking this day by day. Look, the Ukrainians have had some setbacks this week. It's not been a good week for the Ukrainians in Kharkiv, part of Kharkiv. The Russians say they have gained control, as well as in Kherson. And there is some reporting that they're continuing to gain villages, to take over villages in the east. So it's going to be a long slog in the weeks and months ahead.
Indeed it is. George Thomas reporting for us from Ukraine. Thank you so much, George. Continue to
You're welcome.
Stay safe. Much appreciated. Turning to Israel, where violence erupted on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem early today, the last Friday of the Muslim fasting month of Ramadan. Masked men and others hurled rocks and firecrackers from inside the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound towards the gate leading to the Western Wall. Israeli police clashed with the stone throwers, who also waved Hamas flags. Today's clashes were the latest in waves of violence that have rocked the holy site more than the last few weeks. Just before Holocaust Remembrance Day this week, Muslims gathered on the Mount chanting an Islamic battle cry to kill the Jews. As you know, Vice President Kamala Harris tested positive for COVID-19 earlier this week. She doesn't have any symptoms and she is working from home. The good news, though, is although the case numbers are up, they are still relatively low, and they're coming with milder symptoms. Hospitalizations are at the lowest point since the pandemic began. Medical reporter Lori Johnson has the details.
Many public health experts recommend changing the way we measure the severity of COVID-19 surges. They say these days it makes a lot more sense to focus on how many people are being hospitalized for COVID instead of paying so much attention to how many people merely have it. This discussion began in earnest following alarming media reports after a number of government officials tested positive, including 82-year-old Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who was pictured kissing 77-year-old President Biden. Then information indicated the media blast was a bit overblown, as those infected had only mild or asymptomatic cases. Medical experts also pointed out that after 2 years of COVID, most Americans now enjoy some level of immunity from vaccination, past infection, or both.
Nancy Pelosi, for example, they're tested maybe even on a daily basis, and those tests are reported out.
EVMS public health expert Dr. Brian Martin says while reported cases are sharply increasing, the true number is likely much higher. The big takeaway? Today's infections are generally mild. Many may even mistake COVID for springtime allergies.
There's a lot of home test kits, so none of that gets reported. If you do a home test, you don't call your local health department and say, hey, I tested positive for COVID, so that they now have that case. There are also asymptomatic people in the community that are positive for COVID and don't know it.
While paying attention to rising case numbers made sense in the early days of the pandemic, focusing on infections alone can now be misleading, making the threat appear worse than it really is. For example, after cases shot up 50% in just 2 weeks, colleges from coast to coast brought back mask mandates, including American University in Washington, D.C.
I would say kind of a comforting feeling that they were back, but almost like too little too late since our cases had already spiked.
Hospitalizations, however, rose only 4% nationwide in the same time frame. Even the new White House COVID response response coordinator says while the overall number of infections remains relevant, it's really the number of serious ones that more accurately reflects the true risk we face.
We should look at cases. It should be one of the factors. But we should also be looking at hospitalizations, obviously, because that matters more. And then we should be looking at hospital capacity.
Thankfully, hospitalizations are at the lowest level we've seen since the pandemic began. Medical experts have reason to believe the number will remain low because in addition to a higher level of immunity, new treatments are becoming more widely available, and vaccines are being developed to specifically target new variants. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
Coming up, some say America is not prepared to deal with biological warfare. Find out what's being done to strengthen our biodefense system. We come back.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Wednesday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Remember for a moment what it was like to be a child. You believed every story you were told. You saw a world full of endless possibilities. What stories will the world's orphaned and at-risk children believe? We believe the Bible tells the only story truly worth believing. We believe that every child should have the opportunity to dream, the chance to take challenges and turn them into possibilities, the chance to stand on the promises of God, to recognize their place in the greatest story ever told. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Theirs is a world of endless possibilities. They are looking for a story to believe. We will tell them that story. Will you join us?
The longer Russia's war on Ukraine continues, the greater threat of a biological attack. Here at home, the United States is woefully unprepared to defend itself against germ warfare. What's worse, the COVID pandemic showed our enemies exactly where we're most vulnerable. Caitlin Burke brings us this story.
According to the State Department, both Russia and North Korea have active biological weapons programs. Iran and China aren't far behind. Yet here in the U.S., there are serious questions to whether our main system to detect a biological attack even works.
So the nation has a national biodetection system called BioWatch, and associated with that is an acquisition program called BD21. My understanding is they don't work, period, for most of the biological agents for which those systems are supposed to be detecting.
The Department of Homeland Security launched BioWatch back in 2003, and the technology hasn't been updated since. Dr. Asha George, Executive Director of the Commission on Biodefense, says it's time for DHS to shut it down.
There needs to be some kind of transfer of technology or transfer of mission out of the Department of Homeland Security to somebody else if DHS can't handle it. And if it's a basic science issue, then we need to get the science and technology community, the basic research people back involved to produce something.
We recently saw the issues with this detection technology play out when the first U.S. case of COVID-19 was officially confirmed on January 21st, 2020. But studies suggest the virus started circulating here up to a month earlier.
We must be prepared for the next inevitable biosecurity crisis. The COVID lessons learned do not teach us the value of preparedness. I do not know what will. Waiting for the next crisis to take action is too late.
Experts, including Dr. George, recently testified about biosecurity before the Senate Homeland Security Committee. George pointed out a lack of investment in this area puts the country at an extreme disadvantage.
Russia and China are investing billions into their bioeconomy, and part of doing that is investment in protective technologies, vaccines, personal protective equipment, and anything else that will bring the economic aspect of biology in the 21st century up to the next level.
One response element in desperate need of funding is the Strategic National Stockpile.
The stockpile is postured for a rapid, coordinated response.
Originally created to ensure the nation's readiness against agents of bioterrorism like anthrax, SNS has evolved and now also contains stores of vaccines, treatments, and equipment.
Yeah, so the Strategic National Stockpile is kind of like a pantry. And just like you're going to make something you don't make that often, but you walk into the pantry and you say, oh, here's my sea salt, and here's my baker's yeast. You go and you pull it off, you use it when you need it.
Sticking with that analogy, when we needed the baker's yeast, it had expired. Investment has been sporadic over the years due to a lack of biological threats.
Things will get worse than they are right now.
Then, when COVID hit, supplies were diminished, expired, or the technology was out of date. Senator Bill Cassidy says the SNS needs serious reform, and he believes it can be done in a way that helps to solve the funding problem.
I would like it so that it could be cycled out, not wasted, and then replaced on the back end. Because if you're selling something a year before it expires, you've got money to buy something new.
Cassidy says the pandemic is now the playbook for biological warfare, which makes learning quickly from our mistakes a matter of national security.
We'll never know for sure whether or not that virus started in a Wuhan lab or just spontaneously occurred. But what we do know is that now our enemies know how to do it. You would come up with the designer virus. You would simultaneously come up with a highly effective vaccine. You would give the vaccine to all your people, and then you'd release the virus.
Given the COVID wake-up call, the government is moving to address various gaps, including legislation to reform the national stockpile and new investigations by both the intelligence community and the Pentagon, delving into the potential threats we face and where our biodefense currently stands.
To have a threat increase without significant effort to try and at least prevent it from getting worse only puts us and the rest of the world in a situation where if a biological weapon were to be used, it's going to be that much more catastrophic. We can't have that.
In 2015, the Bipartisan Commission on Biodefense laid out 33 recommendations to prepare for a large-scale biological event. To date, only 3 have been fully completed. Caitlin Burke, CBN News, Washington.
Still ahead, diplomats invited to Israel to show the potential of working together. We've got the story.
Are you suffering from feeling tired or worn out during the day? Can you not turn off your brain at night? You are not alone. Hi, I'm Dr. Michael Bruce, the sleep doctor, and I've partnered with the Christian Broadcasting Network, and we're gonna bring you some unbelievable information that you can use tonight to get a better night's rest.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com to get your free copy of Protect Your Sleep today.
Nutrition, exercise, essential oils, weight loss, and more. It's Healthy Living with Lori Johnson.
Talk about what's in this.
Join CBN health reporter Lori Johnson to get the latest information from today's top health experts.
This is fantastic.
Find out what you need to know to live a healthier life. Watch Healthy Living, Tuesday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Woohoo! Hi, Superbook fans. Here's something else you'll love. It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh, no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! Whoa!
No spur falls, man.
Sorry, pardon me. Sorry, excuse me. Ouch!
Are you getting this?
Earn super points to win daily prizes, too. And so much more! Time to get back to my adventures. See you soon! It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
The Abraham Accords seemed impossible just a few years ago. Today, the historic peace agreements are gaining even more acceptance and regional support. One example, a unique visit of diplomats to Israel. Chris Mitchell has the story.
This group of international diplomats are getting an up-close look at Jerusalem's Western Wall and Temple Mount. Former Israeli ambassador to the UN, Danny Danon, brought them here after spending several days in the UAE in Bahrain.
We are all very proud of the Abraham Accord that was signed by President Trump, Prime Minister Netanyahu, and leaders from the Gulf. Today, we see the fruits of those agreements. We took a delegation of senior diplomats, including the Vice President of Paraguay, Minister of Foreign Affairs, for an 8-day trip to the UAE, Bahrain, and Israel. We feel that it's an important accord, but we can do much more with other countries. And the goal of this trip is to show the world the potential of the work between Israel and moderate Arab countries.
Paraguay's vice president felt the trip provided deep meaning for him.
Being in the Holy Land is always important for every Christian, and so is the legacy that Danny Danon is passing on to us. We're taking something very important with us. We see that it's possible to have peace between human beings.
The likely renewal of the Iranian nuclear deal, plus the regime's threat to Israel and the Gulf states, cast a shadow over the visit and the region. A Bulgarian ambassador sees the region separated into two camps, one of war and one of peace.
I never came here to Jerusalem on a flight from Arabic country. Yesterday I did that. What I think will happen in the future is that the initial interaction between Israel and the Arabic countries, human-to-human interaction, cultural interaction, tourism, I'm sure will go farther to the next stage where Israel and the Arabic countries will cooperate in the field of security, international security, and will reinforce the camp of peace.
For this Croatian ambassador, the trip expanded her view of the regional accords.
This trip gave me the opportunity to learn about Emirati and Bahrain perspective of the Abraham Accords. And after this visit, I believe that there is a same level, the highest level of dedication for all three sides for peace, prosperity, and stability in the region and even wider than that.
The trip also opened up new opportunities.
For example, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Central African Republic, she signed diplomatic relations with Bahrain during the visit. The Vice President of Paraguay announced that they will open an embassy in the UAE. So we see the fruits of the accords, and I believe that we'll be able to do much more, not only here and in the region, but worldwide.
In addition, also, it gave me opportunity to see and to explore the possibilities of joining to this ambitious project. I am certain that there is a wider possibility for the countries like Croatia to join in certain niche and cooperation and to contribute to the project and also to contribute to my country. It makes a difference for everyone. This is my impression, and it can also make specific impact for countries like Croatia.
They were amazed because for years, and I know it from the UN, when you say Israel, the Middle East, you think about a conflict. And all of a sudden they came to the Middle East and they saw solutions. They saw that we can actually help them to resolve conflicts. We can help them to improve the lives of their citizens in terms of food security, health, agriculture.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Coming up, we have your Friday Faithful, but first, let's go to Israel, where our Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl has a look at what's coming up on Jerusalem Dateline. Julie.
Thanks, Ephraim. This week on Jerusalem Dateline, we take a look at the continuing violence on Jerusalem's Temple Mount. And CBN Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell travels to the Gulf states, where he interviews Israel's first ambassador to Bahrain. Plus, Israel and Jews and Christians around the world mark Remembrance Day for the 6 million Jews murdered in the Holocaust. You can see more news from the Middle East on Jerusalem Dateline on the CBN News Channel tonight at 8:30 Eastern or the CBN News app. Stay with us. NewsWatch will be back after this break.
It's the new SUPERBOOK Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and SUPERBOOK episodes that you can watch for free. Oh no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own SUPERBOOK character. Ta-da! It's the new SUPERBOOK Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
Heavenly Father, we do thank you for the work of your Spirit, Lord God, with this movement of getting the Bible, yes, Lord, into public schools.
Watch The Prayer Link. Tuesday morning at 7:30 on the CBN News Channel. Get Protect Your Sleep and discover how to improve the quality of your life. A free DVD or booklet from the Christian Broadcasting Network.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
5 leading experts help remove the obstacles between you and restorative sleep.
When you don't get a restful night's sleep, you wake up with an accumulation of stress.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to CBN.com to get your free DVD or booklet today.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
You'll discover how food affects your sleep, how to put insomnia to rest, explore effective remedies for sleep apnea, and much more in Protect Your Sleep. Wake up to your best life and get Protect Your Sleep today. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to CBN.com to get your free DVD or booklet. Download the CBN News app, 24/7 news from a Christian perspective at home or on the road. One place for all of your news. Breaking news alerts. Set daily prayer goals and pray for news stories. Read the most important news and watch CBN News Channel live. CBN News, because truth matters. Go to CBNNewsApp.com to get the app today.
Time now for your Friday Faithful, and today I leave you with this final thought. Our God is a God of miracles. There is nothing too hard for him. Miracles are not just what he does, they are who he is. He is the God of miracles. Check his track record and trust him. He can't lie and he can't fail. With that word, make this a faith-filled Friday. That is going to do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. You can always find more of our programs on the CBN News Channel. You can find them there at any time, as well as online at cbnnews.com. We'd love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can email us, newswatch@cbn.com. And, of course, you can reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For all of us here at CBN News, have a wonderful weekend.